Real Mad Fish Diva. I am here with another video about the 55-gallon Hillstream tank. So have been asked a lot of questions about this tank, and a lot of it has to do primarily with why is this tank thriving in spite of not having some of the features that are often recommended for Hillstream Laoches. This is my experience. I want to make sure that I make that clear. Others may have experiences may vary. Like the old saying goes, results may vary. But this tank has been running not quite a year, or pretty close to a year, and it's thriving and it's doing very well. And so when I do the narration for this video, I will talk about some of the things that I believe can be attributed to that success. And also I'm going to use this new Premiere feature, so I'll be down in the comments answering questions. So I'll see you down in the comments. So this is my 55-gallon heavily planted Hillstream Laoche tank, or Hillstream tank, with Amerca Spelendens, golden white Cloud Minnows, and a little guppy that I put in there when I first started the tank, just so I'd have something in there. There is peacock moss and Brazil moss that I just tied on. Right now you see that Anubias nana petite, but I have since moved that, and as the video progressed, because I took the video at several different times and edited it all together, you'll see the change right now. Now you can see where I've tied the Brazil moss and peacock moss to that large piece of driftwood. So let's talk about the Amercas. The Amerca Spelendens are doing really well. For those of you who don't know, the Amerca Spelendens are on the CARES list. That means they're an endangered species. I got 7 juveniles about 9 months ago from Greg Sage, Select Aquatics. You can check his page out. I'll add a link. They are beautiful fish. The one with the yellow tail is the dominant male, and the big girl there that just went out of frame, that is the pregnant female. Now, about 3 months ago, she had a batch of fry. The fry for this particular species of fish are fully formed when they're born. They're a little less or a little more than an inch. Matter of fact, there's one of the fry there that's only 3 months old. When they're born, they're the biggest fry I've ever seen in my life, from a freshwater fish or a smaller freshwater fish. These fish are very easy to care for. They're little picky eaters. They will not eat dry foods. I feed them frozen brine shrimp and bloodworms. But they're a great fish, really pretty. I am actually getting ready to set up another tank for them, which will be part of my fish room that's coming spring of 19. They will have a tank of their own, but that's the big girl, and she's due any day now. Actually, at this taping, she has had 3 fry, and I think she only has, because they're so large, she has only about 7 fry, but they're huge. And so this is the 55-gallon. I am running sponge filters only on this tank. There is no wave maker. There is no power head, nothing of that sort in that tank. And so that kind of goes to some of the general wisdom about Hillstream tanks. When I first started researching getting Hillstream Laoches, once I make the decision that that's what I wanted, I kept seeing the manifold type tanks. I saw several river biotope tanks that had a lot of heavy flow, and of course the recommendations was heavily oxygenated. This tank is heavily oxygenated. I'm having a hard time with that word, but because of the 3 sponge filters. So, and it's doing really well. Now there's a lot of filament in the tank because I just did a water change, and I tried to get as much of the algae off, but you will see some algae on some of these shots on the front panes, but it usually doesn't last very long. But it is by a window, and I purposely have it by a window because the loaches like to eat the algae. So one thing I want to talk about is the reason why I cleaned the paint on this particular tank. However, the one thing that I often hear about 55 gallons is the narrowness of the front to back. And because I have such large pieces of driftwood, there are portions of the tank that I cannot scrape the algae unless I put my hand down in the tank, and still I don't like to disturb this tank very much, primarily because I think that I have set up the ideal breeding, which is there are behind the driftwood, there are stack rocks, and I'll try to put a card up in the pane so you can go back and look. But under that driftwood there are stacked rocks, and so you can't see them because the tank, there's so many plants. However, I think I created the perfect breeding environment for them, and so I think that's why one of the reasons why they're thriving. So one is the, heavily oxygenated with the sponge filters. 2 is the stack rocks and the perfect breeding environment, a lot of hiding spots. I think that's 2. The third thing I want to mention would be that I do huge water changes on this tank, upwards of 60%. Now, I know some would say, or common wisdom would be, don't do that big of a water change on a tank. I don't recommend that for everyone, but for this particular tank, it tends to be the key. I think that's a big part of it. The water is, even though you see a lot of filament in the tank, the water is, the chemistry is very good. And I think that makes a difference, the big water changes. That's what I think is the biggest factor with the success of this tank, is the fact that the large water changes. So, yeah, so that is pretty much it. If you want to know about the plants, there are several varieties of Anubias. I'm not even going to try to pronounce them. I am just not good with those names. There is Java Fern. There are red swords in this tank. Let's see, what else is in here? There was some Monte Carlo, but it has since floated to the top, and I've removed it from the tank and put it in another tank. Here is the underbelly of one of the Hillstreams, which is on the glass. So there are now 20 Hillstream Laoches. I started out with 9. I lost 2, and so there are 7 adults in this tank. There are, let's see, there are 7 juveniles, and then there was a recent spawn of 7 fry. And so they're the little bitty ones. You can't, they hide pretty often. Well, not really hide, but they're so small. Sometimes it's hard to capture them. But I try to do a good job and just show the 3 groups of Hillstreams. They're very happy. They're out all the time. There's one resting on a leaf. So what do I feed these? I feed them a variety of things, everything from Repashy green to frozen baby brine shrimp to regular brine shrimp, algae pellets, bottom dweller pellets. Yeah, so they do get a variety of different foods, and of course they do eat the algae. And so, yeah, so this is my 55. I will, like I mentioned in my intro, I will be down in the comments as the video progresses. And if you have any questions about this tank, please feel free to ask. Yeah, so there you go. And enjoy the rest of the video. And I'll see you in the comments. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that, any other things I can talk about. There's some crenums in this tank as well. They're gorgeous. That's what's there to the right. They have grown probably 40, it will be easily 48 inches. So if you have a tall tank or a tank where you want a foliage across the top, they're great plants, very easy. Oh, the other thing, temperature. So I run this tank about 74.4 degrees, and it's pretty consistent. I check the temperature often. When I do water changes, it may go as low as 65 sometimes. I know that's a huge swing, but you know, the water is diluted. But coming out of my tap, it's pretty cold this time of year because I am in Southwest Ohio. But I really try to monitor that. I don't like it to drop drastically like that, but it does drop a little bit, and then it kind of levels up off. I am running a Koval LED 48-inch LED light on it. It is great for growing plants. I actually have red plants in here, so it will grow red plants. There are 3 different sizes of sponge filters in here with the overall capacity of 60 gallons. So yeah, trying to think if there's anything else, but it's a great tank. There's a little bit of blackbeard algae, but I really don't have a problem with that. I just, my tanks, I like to keep them very natural looking. I don't want them to get too overcome by algae and things of that nature, but that's what's going to be in the wild. I am not one of those people who has to have crystal clear, pristine water at all times. I do take good care of my tanks. I gravel vac around the plants, and there are some areas where I can't get to. So what I do is I take a smaller siphon. I have a Python, 50-foot Python, but I also have one of the little handheld siphons with the bulb. And what I do is I go around and I push water into some of the areas I can't get to, which pushes some of the debris and fish feces up into the water column so I can take it out with the Python. But yeah, here's my 55-gallon Hillstream Laoches tank. And I'm very proud of it. It's done really well. It's exceeded my expectations. And thanks for watching. Bye-bye.